After last week's guilty verdict against former Speaker Michael Madigan, Chief of Staff and House Clerk Tim Mapes, you've got more reaction coming in, this time from State Representative Wayne Rosenthal and also Governor J.B. Pritzker, who has yet been asked about the Mapes verdict. So here is Wayne Rosenthal from yesterday when at the stop in Litchfield, he took a few questions after the event, and I asked him about the corruption investigations.
You know, the Speaker's answer is, well, we passed reforms and comprehensive reforms, and what I would say is that I don't think they were comprehensive enough. I think there's more that needs to be done. And you see that Mapes was supporting Madigan all the way, and probably a very good possibility he's going to go to jail for it. So, obviously there's some changes that still continue to be made.
So Wayne Rosenthal saying that there's more ethics reforms that are needed, and Governor J.B. Pritzker was also asked yesterday after the event to comment on Mapes and the outcome and what kinds of ethics reforms are possible or needed.
No, there's always more that we should be doing. And in fact, every year we should be looking at ethics reform and making changes and improvements. As you know, since I became governor, we've had two pretty significant ethics reform bills that have passed that I've signed. And I continue to work with the legislature to find ways that we can improve upon those. But I'm proud of the work that we've already done. I don't think there's anything indicated in the Mapes trial in particular that leads to action, but certainly everything that's led up to what will be a Madigan trial and what already has been the Comment 4 trial has been indicators of things that ought to change. And again, I've led on much of that to make sure that we're, with regard to utility reform, making sure we have ethics in the process there, and making sure that we're improving the way the legislature operates so that we can rid ourselves of corruption once and for all.
Just to follow up on that, I got a separate question. What lessons can be learned from this whole saga? I mean, I don't know how much you've read of all the indictments or what the prosecution's revealed, but the pay for play, the type of close relationship they have. Is there anything, like, for instance, you internally are doing within your administration to ensure that these types of close relationships and that nexus of power that Madigan had of big money, politics, and controlling legislation, what lessons do you think should be learned from that?
I think we've learned lessons and are acting upon that. Just as I said, we've passed ethics legislation several times. In fact, we ought to be continuing the improvement process. But remember, it's also about electing good people to public office and then holding people accountable if, in fact, they're corrupt, if they're breaking the law. And that's happening. So I think what's happening as a result of people being convicted is it's sending a signal to people who are thinking about running for public office or people who are in office today that they're not going to get away with it.
So while the governor says that nothing out of the Mapes trial necessarily will lead to legislative action, the whole entirety of the Madigan Enterprise that federal prosecutors allege is a nearly decade-long bribery scheme to give little to do nothing jobs for personal gain to Madigan and his associates in exchange for favorable legislation. He says that's instructive of what changes need to be made. And while they have made some ethics reforms, more needed, and Republicans saying that Democrats aren't doing enough. So we'll be obviously watching to see if anything comes out of fall veto session heading into next year when you've got the case against Mike Madigan going to be on full display up in Chicago. He faces 22 counts of corruption, the longest-serving state House Speaker, the former chair of the Democratic Party of Illinois. And he's pled not guilty, but we'll see how that trial plays out next year. All right, it is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on WMAY. Follow me anywhere, Bishop on